Hi, my name is Brian, and I'm the High Pop Professor. And today I have a little bit of a video response for Greg over at Midlife Cards. He posed a question the other day that, I was going to write something in the comments, and it was getting a little bit long-winded, as I know he's no stranger to that. And so I decided it'd just be faster to probably just put my thoughts in a video. And so that's what this is. And the question that he had posed to us was, he wanted to know, what is the biggest threat to our hobby? What's the biggest, danger that that we could face our hobby at being ruined? How might that happen, or how could that happen? And it's an intriguing question, and so it got me thinking a little bit. And of course, nobody has a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen, but I did think of this very interesting sort of hobby dystopian future, and we'll talk about how we get there and what that looks like in a little bit. But basically, my idea here is that probably what's going to end up ruining this for for everybody is basically regulations, and specifically on the increased gambling aspects in the hobby. So basically, gambling and the regulations, particularly in light of how kids engage with the hobby, to protect the kids from gambling, which isn't it's understandable how that could be. So let's walk through this a little bit, because you could say, yes, there's a big component of gambling to the hobby, or at least a significant one, but some might argue that, well, it's always kind of been that way, even if you're opening a pack of, I don't know, 85 tops, you're looking for the Roger Clemens. You're looking for the bigger cards in there. Heck, I remember, opening packs of 93 tops, and the stakes were very low back then, though. Those packs were 50 cents, whatever, and you couldn't really pull. I mean, maybe the best card you could pull out of that pack was something like this. You had this black gold, Frank Thomas. Look at this. Like, this was maybe a $10 card, back in the day. Okay. So great. And that would have been an amazing hit. And I actually did pull a Frank Thomas Black Gold back in the day, back in 93 when I was a kid. But I digress. The point is, the scope and the stakes have risen to such a degree where, now you have literal $1 million plus cards. The Paul Skeens debut patch auto 1 of 1. Yeah, where that's life-changing money, and it's coming out of a ultra-modern product. Now, that's not typical, but the fact is, the stakes have increased to the point where there's now life-changing money on the table. At some point, these increased values are going to attract attention sooner or later. And I don't think the companies are being very subtle about the money that they're making, the business that they're doing. And I'm just talking about, in general, the big companies in the hobby space. Yeah? So along with these increasing wax prices, right? So boxes are, 200, 300, 500, 800, 1,000, or hey, 8,000 for one of those Topps Mercury boxes, right? For 8 cards in them. What's that, $1,000 per card by my math? Hey, but you get a Wemby auto in there. Okay. It's not baseball, but the point is, increasing wax prices, man. People are buying these things, and let's face it. I mean, basically, it's a high limit slot machine room is what this is what that is, right? But of course, people get skunked on these boxes all the time. They might spend $300 on a Topps Chrome box and come back with $40 worth of actual value out of those things. And so, people are fleeing. They're running away from these and just entering the breaks instead, or the repacks, because they have higher ROIs with them, right? But again, okay, so you have a repack. So who's going to regulate that you're going to, get 50% or 60% ROI on average, based on these checklists? Do we have auditors going in to make sure that the bigger hits are in there to balance out the lower value cards? I don't know. It's not like there's a Nevada Gaming Commission that is, at the national or something, making sure that these, are done by and I'm not saying there should be, But again, when the amount of money changing hands here is as high as it is, would anyone be surprised? Right? And forget repack. Well, look at digital repacks, and that's even just a more streamlined version. Look, you can take your hits and click the button and sell it back instantly at 90% comps, just to let it ride and pull the slot machine lever again and buy another one and see what that happens. And I mean, it is designed for that quick rush, that quick dopamine hit, and it's designed to get people addicted. I mean, we, I don't know. I can see it happening. It's hardwiring people, and yes, kids too, into getting those gambling habits, started early. It's really to hook them on it. At one point, Joe Camel, they had mascots and cartoon characters that were catering to kids. And look, as these developments and technologies and products keep growing and evolving and changing, that line that's between buying wax and collecting and just gambling continues to blur. And it's not easy to see exactly what we're talking about. I mean, heck, I would even contend submitting orders to PSA is gambling. I'm gambling I'm going to get a 9 or a 10 on a certain card. If it comes back a 7, well, that's kind of a bust, right? And so at some point, there's going to be a child, a kid of a congressman who is going to, rack up $50,000 of Pokemon cards, unbeknownst to their parents, on whatnot, right? And at that point, it's going to take some trigger like that, where there's going to be some legislation introduced that's going to mark the beginning of the end. And they're going to want to put in this regulation there. And I can see it. I can envision a dark dystopian future in the not too distant future where you go into the Walmart and the baseball cards are hidden behind the desk, behind the glass case next to the cigarettes and the vape pens for 18 plus consumers only. Like, I can see a future where children will not be allowed to buy baseball cards. Is it that hard to believe? I can see in the schoolyard, I can see a little miniature black market being set up for cardboard. I mean, it's, it's an awful attack on our hobby, of course, because, it's the kids who watch sports and engage with the hobby, the ultra modern component of that. It's those kids who are the lifeblood of the hobby, who in the future, they will become nostalgic for the players they grew up watching, just like we did, and that's generations before us. And so when an entire generation of kids gets cut off from their cardboard supply, it's like the future of the hobby as we know it may be in deep, deep trouble. So on that cheery note, that's my response for Graig's of how might the hobby be in danger? How might the hobby get ruined? What is the biggest threat to the hobby? Well, that's it. At some point, these companies aren't going to be able to keep their profits under wraps through greed, through whatever means. More gambling products will continue to be out there, public in the open, whether it's in the case of a PSA or CGC vending machines. Okay. Yeah, someone's going to realize there's a lot of money to be made for the government in regulating this. And for the sake of protecting the kids, they're going to want to implement that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.